Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Sunday conversation. This week, we will be discussing human trafficking with two amazing guest panelists. If you are new here, we welcome you and invite you to join us every Sunday, same time at 2 p.m. to discuss a range of topics that you all, as our audience, can actually help us select. We also invite you to joining us on Tuesdays as we highlight Black and Brown businesses and community leaders, and Thursdays where we bring you educational presentations teaching you about the topics that help you thrive. And just to give a little introduction to our co-host for the day, my name is Jada and I'm the Director of Programs here at Both Sides of the Conversation. And my co-hosts are...
I'm Rico, co-founder of Both Sides of the Conversation, and we also have
John Henry, co-founder of Both Sides of the Conversation. I'm going to go ahead and turn the community standards over to Danielle, Both Sides of the Conversation.
Hello, everyone. So Both Sides of the Conversation is providing a safe and honest space for open conversation. Please be respectful of that. Be respectful of the panelists, hosts, and participants. Healthy debates and conversation is encouraged. Don't personalize anything with anyone. Name calling, bullying, trolling, or shaming will not be allowed here. Your perspective is yours and it's not a prescription. So you don't have to agree, but show respect. We are creating an open forum for dialogue, healing, and education.
All right, thank you, Danielle. And just a little bit about how this Zoom will work. So for those joining us through Zoom, you can add to the conversation through the chat or by raising your hand to be brought up as a panelist and have the ability to unmute and speak. But for those joining us on Facebook Live, we will be checking the comments to include your input. And let's go ahead and get into the introduction of our panelists for the day. Danielle, do you want to go ahead and take that away?
Sure. Our first panelist is Venus Morris. She's a native of Oakland, California, an activist and educator, artist, and healer. She is dedicated to pushing the agenda of radical healing forward in the communities across the nation through art, cultural empowerment, self-awareness, and experimental workshops, activism, advocacy, and philanthropy. She has also been an advocate in human trafficking and the exploitation of children since 2010. She is currently outreach support for LEAD for SHADE, that stands for Survivors Healing, Advising, and dedicated to empowerment. And she's also involved in the multiple organizations across the Bay Area. Please welcome Venus Morris.
Good afternoon, you guys. How y'all doing today? I don't really know what I'm supposed to say after the introduction.
She gonna get the other introduction. We'll get our other guest here, and then we'll jump into this in a second.
Okay, sorry. Our other panelist today is Falilah Bilal. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And she's worked joyously for over 30 years in creative, innovative, relevant, evidence-based strategies to transform, empower, and to develop individual systems, organizations, and contemporary thought. Ms. Bilal's work is centered in healing practices, empowering youth, self-discovery, and issues that systemically impact groups of people. Ms. Bilal specializes in the field of youth development, healing, informed organizational development, and strategic fundraising consultation. Falilah Aisha Bilal was raised by parents who are pioneers in the Black Panther movement of the 1960s, which instilled within her a foundation dedicated to helping others and a love for all humanity. At 14 years old, Ms. Bilal participated as a youth leader in healing retreats with Black Women's Health Project, where she was introduced to basic healing techniques and group facilitation. Please welcome Ms. Falilah Aisha Bilal.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. My name is actually pronounced Falilah Aisha Bilal. And so we're going to make it work and we're going to keep it moving. And I'm just so thankful to be here with both sides of the conversation. Happy Sunday, everyone.
All right, Rico got kicked out. We'll try to get him back in. Before we get started, this conversation today is about human trafficking. What we're trying to get out of this conversation for community is the understanding the human trafficking, how it happens. We're trying to figure out some solutions and then also get some resources to our community to have a great conversation on that. Before we start, just wanted to go over this week. I know it's been a challenging week up and down with what everyone's seen in the Capitol. And again, our prayers out to those families and people involved with that. unfortunate situation. But again, it's the reality that we are faced with. But on the flip side of that, I want to end the week off in a positive way. This week we had our District 10 supervisor. He is now the board president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. So congratulations to Shaman Walton. Want to give him a shout out, man. It's a powerful thing to know him and understand the impact that he's having not only in our community, but in communities across this country with his legislation, with his leadership, with his understanding of what's going on in America and things that we need to change. So just wanted to highlight that and get behind this brother, get behind the people that we have in place to help us make this change as we start walking towards it. So just wanted to shout that out before we get started, because I think it's very important to get behind our people, especially our brothers that's doing things, stepping up in the community. It's been a time coming, and we go get behind them and keep pushing this movement. So we're gonna try to get Rico back in here. But with that said, we're gonna open it up to our panelists. You guys, I would like both of you guys to kind of open this conversation up for people who may don't really understand human trafficking, where it stems from, kind of give them a background so that they can understand, what's going on, the things that you guys seeing, and then we'll just start the conversation off like that.
Ish, you can go ahead and start.
Before y'all start, I just want to say personally, thank you to Aisha and thank you to Venus, not only for being warrior women along with me in this effort of radical healing, but for being personal and close, dear sister friends of mine. I really appreciate you guys joining us today for this conversation. And I know that as with all things, we'll make it through it. I do really want to uplift you, Venus, for all of the work that you constantly are doing and continue to do with the sisters that are out there. And Isha, if you could just start by telling us a little bit about the work that you're doing and have done.
Okay. Thank you, Kasla, so much. Thank you for being who you are in the community. Gratitude is the way. And there's so many of us that are warriors that people don't know about, people that don't run organizations or don't have, a presence in like on social media or this big, everyone knows me. But Kasla Crockett is a sister that's been in this community for 30 plus years, holding down youth, families, women, men. She is someone that shows up and shows out every time. So I'm honored to be here. And I just appreciate you including me in this dialogue. So as we said earlier, my name is Falilah Aisha Bilal, and I work in the field of human trafficking. I have been blessed I consider myself like a newbie, honestly, in terms of this as a profession, but this is an issue that has impacted my family personally. So before we were even calling this human trafficking, it was an issue that I was dealing with through my family. And so it's really important when we talk about this topic that we recognize that it's very personal. It isn't just, this is the new hot thing, gender-based violence. Let's talk about trauma, but that this is something that for a lot of us is very personal from a multitude of angles, right? Some of us have family members. Some of us ourselves have been survivors of the commercial sexual exploitation. Some of us have family members and friends who were what folks are calling pimps that were involved in that. A lot of us, y'all get ready for this. A lot of us are people that actually buy folks, that actually are lonely, that actually are desperate, that participate in human trafficking from the perspective of the buyer. So I just want to acknowledge as we get started that while I'm new to this conversation as a professional, I am a veteran to this issue as a person, like we all are. And so my work has really centered in supporting those young women in particular and young men, but it's been highly focused on young women that have been exploited through the commercial sex trade, and finding ways and means to empower them so that they can make the best choice for their lives, so that they can be healthy, they can be whole, they can be happy. We know that all the research and data shows us that participants in the sex industry, and I do that in quotes because for a lot of the work I do, these are children that are being exploited and abused. These are not adults making a decision to sell their bodies. These are children that have been sexually assaulted, generally speaking, and then are being held and forced to provide this service, as you would call it, which is not And so it's very important that when we talk about commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking, we understand that a lot of the people that are involved in this are there by force. They're not there by choice. And it's a very different conversation when you sit with sex workers who are of age and who are talking about choosing this. So a lot of my work has been rooted in working with children that have been impacted by the foster system, children who have experienced a high level of sexual assault and trauma, children that have intergenerational family trauma, and that shows up in their them being caught up and lost in the world of human trafficking. For a little over a year, I ran an organization called Missy, which is an organization in Oakland that serves sexually exploited children. I was their executive director. And before that, I worked with numerous organizations on this issue of how do we heal? How do we heal some of the most intimate parts of ourselves? And how do we focus our efforts on not just service provision, but also creating spaces for people to heal, knowing that that personal empowerment is the thing that lifts us up individually and sustains us collectively. Most recently, I was awarded an award by Los Angeles County Probation Department as a CSEC champion through work with Nola Brantley, who is a powerful sister who is now in Los Angeles, who actually is one of the founders of Missy. I've been doing trainings for the past 3 or 4 years, working with their strategy in LA County, looking at how to train service providers, adults like us, to work with this population. And so I'm just thankful to be here. I have a lot to say about healing. I have a lot to say about love. I have a lot to say about the medicine that we have. And I believe that we can shift this. And I'll pass it over to my sister Venus, who is a real champion in this and has been working in this far longer than myself professionally. Yes, you have, Venus, and it's important to recognize that you as a younger woman in this community is very important, and you need to get your roses while you're right here. And it's still working on the front lines, supporting survivors and folks that are still lost in human trafficking, that are still out there right now as we sit in our nice fancy houses, as I sit back in Mount Shasta looking at the snow, that there's still our daughters and our nieces and our mamas are out there. And Venus is someone that's out there with them to support them and uplift them. So I just want to pass it over to Venus. And yes, let's go.
Thank you, Ish. You know I love you so much. Cass, you know I love you a lot. I really appreciate both of you. You know what? You know I can't help myself. I have to give you guys your flowers before I go into myself, because without y'all, I wouldn't be the way that I am. I've known Falilah for about 12 years now, maybe 13 years. Started off as a youngster in a program that is dedicated to radical healing and Black youth empowerment specifically. It's designed for Black children. Not saying other children don't matter, but we're saying that we're focusing on the healing of our babies. And that organization, it used to go by the name of Leadership Excellence, now is Flourish Agenda. And I don't know, you guys are Black, not really. I think y'all from the Bay Area, not 100% sure who all of you guys are, but Camp Akili is something that's been going on for a little over 30 years. And it is a program that's dedicated to the empowerment of children in their healing, ages 14 to 18. And that's how I met Falilah, learning how to do a whole lot of things I'm not gonna go into. So I came into this work when I was homeless. And I was at this program. It's called Dreamcatchers Runaway Youth Center. And it is the only shelter for children ages 12 to 18. Really 12 to 17, but you know, soon as they turn 18, they can stay for about a month and then they have to go transition to, you know, a adult facility. And I was there in that program and I learned a lot. My eyes was closed to a lot of things. Being from Oakland, the pimp culture is just a part of your culture. It's just a part of who we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not on us, it's in us. You know, it's being from here, even being a woman, right? Having, you know, big cousins, uncles, whatever you want to call it, getting the game from them, right? And talking the way that women talk out here, right? We talk with the vernacular that's a little different. You know, sometimes it's offensive, sometimes it's aggressive, sometimes it's uh, somebody told me it's manly one day. Um, but that's because we've had to, as women, learn how to navigate ourselves through, you know, predators. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I learned so much when I was 18 about human trafficking that I was like, wow, I want to do something about this. I know people, I have people in my family who've been trafficked. I have close friends who've been trafficked. So I made the decision to get into the movement at a young age. And I've been moving ever since. I met Sarai Smith Masadegos. She is the other founder of Missy. Missy stands for Motivating, Inspiring, and Supporting Sexually Exploited Youth. That's the acronym for it. And yeah, like her and Nola, they are literally like the front runners in all of this when it comes to advocating for children who have been commercially sexually exploited. That's what CSEC stands for. When Aisha was talking, she said she had received an award for CSEC. And so I was just like, people are selling children? What? That's crazy. And it was, I couldn't connect it. And it was crazy that I couldn't connect it because I've seen it. I've been on the bus. I've been in cars riding down E1. I've seen them. People who look my age, but I didn't make the connection because it's been happening for so long. And I've become accustomed to being numb to seeing that. You know, you're accustomed to, you know, the girls that are out there doing what they do and then coming to school and getting roasted about it. And you don't really want to like fight for her in that moment because that means you're going to get pulled into it. It's like, being young and being from Oakland in this life has just been, it's been really interesting because you have to have a balance, right? I call myself hyphy holistic healer, right? Because I'm from Oakland, I'm from East Oakland. So number one, I'm a part of the hyphy movement. It's in me, it ain't on me, okay? And I also understand, like, with the work that I've got to do with radical healing and learning about, you know, my ancestry and who I am as a Black goddess, the holistic healer part is the very important piece to that, right? Because yeah, hyphy kids got trauma, but hyphy kids deserve to be healed. So I got into that, and I work with Survivors Healing, Advising, and Dedicated to Empowerment. That stands for SHADE. Sarai Smith Masadegos, she is the founder of that. And that is a platform where we do bedside advocacy for folks who have been trafficked or folks who are experiencing domestic violence. So we're pretty much in any hospital across the Greater Bay Area. You guys could reach out. You guys could talk to Shade if you feel like you need a bedside advocate or you need some type of support, or if you need to get other resources or pushed in the different direction or the right direction as to what kind of support one needs. And I'm going to stop right there so we can push the conversation forward.
Definitely. So just want to give you guys a welcome. Everybody on this panel is from the Bay Area. The top 3 we in San Francisco, but yeah, we in the Bay. So this is all a Bay thing. It's all love, but definitely we wanted to highlight this topic because we know it's a serious matter, not only here in the Bay Area, but human trafficking is happening all across this United States of America and across the world. And we understand the business that people are making of it, $1 billion industry. And definitely we want to, you know, have these conversations in this safe space, but to also educate the mothers, the fathers of the community of what's going on and how to be aware. And definitely we want to keep our kids safe. And, you know, I heard you say something about the foster care system. And I just want to ask you guys, are you guys seeing it predominantly in numbers more happening in the foster care system and group homes and things of that nature? Because it seems like it's a link with kids who are going, like you said, dealing with teen homelessness and these programs. It seems like that's where the initial, but then I understand it also happens sometimes starting from the home and just the environment that kids are in. So can you
So
guys
I
speak
want
to
to
that?
say that when you define human, oh, yeah, absolutely. Can you all hear me? Um, so human trafficking includes sexual exploitation as well as labor trafficking. A lot of times when we say the term human trafficking, we think of just sexual exploitation, but let's also just hold in our mind labor trafficking, and that there are folks that are brought from other countries here, and they're also being human trafficked through their labor. And generally, if you're being labor trafficked, you're probably being sexually exploited as well. My work at Missy, like local responses or national responses, meaning within America, was largely with young people who were impacted by the foster care system, were impacted by the juvenile justice system. And part of that, when Nola and Sarai and the two other founders of Missy started it, is what they saw, that these were children, right? They saw that these girls were 13, 14, 15, that they were children, and they were being convicted of crimes that they were committing related to them being trafficked. So if I'm sitting in a car with this boyfriend, with my boyfriend, who's also my pimp, and the cops pull us over and he tells me to hold his gun, I'm going to hold his gun, and then I'm going to take the charge. And it's most likely that he's over 18 and I'm under 18. So instead of him going to jail for illegal gun possession, I'm going to juvenile hall, right? And these were the cases that we were seeing where children were being held as criminals when they were in situations where they were extremely vulnerable and had no power over their circumstances. And largely, what we saw too is that there was sometimes a circle of adults that kind of knew this behavior was happening, and they were blaming the child. That girl's just fast. She just out there. She's with the beep, right? Like all of these judgments around her, but no type of critical analysis or judgment around this grown man and or woman, because women can be pimps as well, okay? This grown adult that was exploiting this child and using this child and manipulating this child, right? There was always a focus on the victim as the person doing it, as opposed to the abuser. And so I think it's important when you ask that question about how systems intersect with our lives, our children's lives. We know that racism is real. I'm just going to say it, right? Human trafficking is happening on a larger level, not just here in Oakland with kids in the foster care system. You know, our president, our former president, is a very well-known international human trafficker. Let's be very clear about that and tell the truth about that. And when you look at rich white heterosexual men who are trafficking children, boys and girls all the time, no one is calling them pimps. No one is calling them buyers, but they are as well. And they do it on a whole nother level. My work, I did not engage a lot with that level of it because, again, I was dealing with young people who were system impacted. And we know that these systems have been placed to keep a level of control in our community, to bring largely a force from the outside in to help us manage our families and our challenges that we've had. And so for me, when I think about this issue of human trafficking and specifically the commercial sexual exploitation of children, I think about a mixture of racism, sexism, and violence, right? So this idea that these three issues are working together. If I'm a Black girl and I'm on the track, I'm like 4 times more likely to get pulled over by the police than the white girl, right? If I am poor, as opposed to having money, you perceive what's happening in a different way, right? And so there are these elements that we see in our society at large that play out in human trafficking. And what they do is they create a level of vulnerability for the victims, for these children and these young women that in moments feels insurmountable to break free from it and to rise out of it and still have some type of healthy life. And I'll also say that for the men I know that who are former pimps, or who were raised by, who had fathers who were pimps. You talk about the Bay Area and pimp culture, Venus. I've dated some of these men. I'm in community with some of these men. These men are highly traumatized as well. They have problems. They can't maintain relationships. A lot of them have physiological malfunctions based on the sexual abuse that they have experienced. A lot of them are emotionally messed up and have to go through a ton of healing as well. So we aren't really talking about largely the sexual exploitation or sexual abuse of men and boys, but I know quite a few who were raised by fathers who were pimps and who have a lot of issues associated to being a young boy raised in that lifestyle and having his auntie, when he turned 13 or 14, his auntie perform a sexual act on him, basically by force, and then told that he should be happy because you got you some, and you know, but she 40 or 24, okay? And he's 14. That is a scary process for a young man, in the same way that it is scary for these young women. And we have another layer of it because of sexism. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge the systems, and to also acknowledge how we as a community have internalized this to be just what it is, and who we lay blame on, and how we support those that have been impacted by it. I'm done. You can cut me off, John.
Rico, that's
because
okay.
I talk a lot.
We gonna jump in here. I thought Rico was about to say something. That's why I was a pause. I know everybody's the internet is having issues today, but Rico, did you want to say something?
I did. I'm sorry. Hey, everyone. I'm Rico. I was having some Wi-Fi internet issues, but like I always tell John, that energy out there, never want this good information to get on, but no matter what, we're going to keep on pushing. I did have a question though, because systemically, and we know like a lot of the music, especially in Bay Area culture or just culture in the United States, teaching our young boys to be pimps or be big pimping, or however way we want to articulate it. That's just a part of the culture. Um, to have that mindset, because the way you're framing it, I've never heard it like that, right? So I'm gonna be 100% honest about my stuff, right? So I've never seen pimping like that, like, because it was always taught that, you be a boss, or, you I think all young men are kind of taught this, right? And we never look at it from the perspective that you're saying it. We think of human trafficking as someone being snatched up and, by force, or and they're in some little cell, and what the movies show us, right? Like I've never seen, like I've never heard it in this way. And I think now that you're saying it this way, it opened my eyes to everything that we do. It pushes our young boys in that direction of human trafficking, into wanting to be pimps, or want to manipulate women, or abuse them in some form or fashion, and then vice versa too. I think that as it relates to men, because a lot of times it's not talked about, when we do go through traumatizing situations with older women, which I was actually a victim of when I was very, very young. uh, and it was my uncle's girlfriend, and it was very traumatizing. And back then I hated older women, just because of that. And I think that this is a great space to continue to and to have this type of dialogue, because men, we a lot of us go through things, and we kind of, that whole be strong. And I think being strong is more than just suppressing. I think being strong is actually talking about it, and being able to have an outlet to engage in and educate folks on your experience, so that they don't have to go through those things either, and having the courage to being able to speak up and speak out against this type of stuff. Because I have a very huge family, and a lot of this stuff is like, it's even to the children, it's glorified, and I have to talk to my three boys all the time, and let them know, like, this type of behavior isn't okay. So I got to always, as a father, married man, show them, like, look, this is what a man actually looks like, and what you're seeing on TV, and what you're hearing in the music, that's not actually, cool at all, but they think it is. They think it's the stuff. And, I'm just trying to figure out, how do we curb that, and come up with some counterintelligence against some of that stuff that they have going on.
So I want to say one thing before we get to answering your question about curbing it, Rico. I just want to acknowledge you for sharing what you shared. Right? It doesn't get easier sharing our deep stories of places where we've been traumatized. And so I just want to acknowledge you and appreciate you being vulnerageous, which means vulnerable and courageous to share that, and that your story is not alone. They say 1 in 3 girls are molested or raped by someone they know before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 boys. I disagree with that statistic. I think it's the same for girls and boys. There's just not a place where boys are talking about it. I know so many countless men that have gone through stuff at the hands of older women, and at the hands of older male cousins or uncles, that also included shaming, It also include physical assault, like I'm gonna punch you in your stomach if you don't touch my dick, you know, things like that, where family members will do it. And so I want to just acknowledge what you shared and how powerful it was. And thank you for sharing it, because we have the power, y'all, to move through this stuff and still live really whole, happy lives. So one of the ways I think we curb it is by doing what we're doing, is telling the truth, is talking about it and finding spaces and groups and people that you can tell the truth. One. Two, I think even in you telling the truth, you have to begin to use the proper language, right? So we need to use the proper language. And if it is, when you talk about incest and you talk about rape and you talk about sexual exploitation, particularly for us as Black folks, we know these issues very well, because this is what was happening in slavery. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. This was happening in slavery. We were being sexually assaulted publicly and privately. Boys were being raped by their masters. Let's be very clear. Older women were being forced to breed with younger boys, and it could be boys in their family. So I know this is some heavy, sick stuff, but these are the things that we have a genetic memory of. These are the things that were passed down in our families through our experience of slavery. And so it's very important that we tap into something, our identity and our history, before we were enslaved in America. It's very important that we go back to the roots of who we are, I think, as African people, and begin to learn about that culture and begin to understand that this Western colonial culture has so much sickness within it that it's infected the entire world, but that there was a time before this time, right, where we had a different way of being. So I think that things like this is part of how we curb it. We know that in the 1970s, 1970s was coming out of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, which I was raised in, right? And so the larger society, white society in particular, needed to create an identity that Black people connected to not be activists and be revolutionaries. So if I can have y'all over here talking about Black power, liberation, shut this shit down, so on and so forth, well, we're gonna create this identity of a Black man as a pimp and this identity as the Black female as this hoe, and we're gonna sell that movie. We're gonna sell that image, right? The same way they did with the drug epidemic. Like, they sold us this idea about us as a super predator, right? They sold it to us, and they created policies and procedures to help influence us to think about ourselves as a super predator. And now I'm a Black girl and I'm sitting next to my Black brother and I'm scared of him. I think he's a super predator. He's sitting next to me and he thinks that I'm a hoe or an object. These are identities that were sold to us. And I'm gonna give a few of y'all some money and make it look flashy and fun, right? And then it becomes part of this culture. These things don't happen by accident. And these things don't happen to us just because we're gullible either. Let's be very clear. This was coming directly, if you study it historically, after the civil rights and the Black Power movement. We were rising up and getting conscious, waking up, and they were like, hold on, wait a minute. Heroin didn't get them? Well, we're going to give them crack. And what did crack do largely? It hit the Black woman. And so we knew when the Black woman was broke down on crack, the Black family was broke down. And so then her daughter becomes this thing that's used and abused. And she, as the Black mama, would sell her daughter. Let's be clear, and let's take accountability across the board. She would sell her daughter so she could get high, right? And so there's these cycles of this. I'm so thankful. I have a son, he's 17, and I have a daughter who's 13. And even when I think about my son and the different identities that he sees being a man, you know, my son's a dancer. My son does theater. My son is a Pisces. He's in his heart. He's emotional, and he's a man, and that's part of his strength. You a Pisces, Rico? Yeah. But it's important that we lift these things up as this is your identity, and you just as strong as this guy over here who carries this gun every day and who can fight. You know what I mean? That we accept our children and ourselves to be full human beings. I think that's another way that we curb it. And I'm gonna stop. Y'all have to cut me off. Cross already know.
I'm up here pumping and going crazy over here because I'm a Pisces also. But then also part of my story is when I was a kid, I studied contemporary and ballet dance, and I was bullied for dancing, and it wasn't accepted back in, you know, the late 80s. And, you know, I moved my hips, oh, you're gay, or, you know, I would get socked up, oh, we're gonna make you tough. You know, when I was already tough. Like, I grew up in the projects, like I'm already tough, like, but I love this dancing stuff, right? So I can agree with everything that you're saying, like it really touches home that sometimes it's not even sexual, it's just more of the mental abuse on you being naturally who you are, and people are forcing something on you that has nothing to do with you. And it actually changed the course of my life, and I started to put on these different masks so that way I can say, because they were like, oh, that's for gay people, and I'm like, okay, well, what do a man look like? So then you look outside, and there's no father figure in the house, and I start putting on all these different masks of other people, and then it led me to prison. It led me to all this path of destruction because of being bullied and having to go through the internal pain of why I just can't be accepted for who I am as Rico and not as what this idea of my community perceive a man to be. So, but I did want to tell your son continue to do what he do.
Well, before we move along there, just want to let everybody know that's on Zoom. If you have any questions, you want to give any feedback, please put it in chat. Or if you want to get up on the panel and talk and ask a question to Venus or to our other sister here, Falilah, let me know, or hit the raise your hand function, and we'll get you. People that's in our Facebook watching in the group, if you have any questions, we'll be pulling some of those things up shortly here as we move this conversation. I think, Rico, that was a good point that you honed in on, and I think Venus hit it when we talk about the desensitizing of these type of issues in our community. I think it goes with violence, everything. It happens so much that we just don't even, it's just normalized. I mean, and I know it affected me. Like when I was younger, going to funerals all the time, it's like, the first time I went to the funeral, I was crying. The second time I wasn't. And it was just like, I was like, no, I was going to so many funerals, I don't even want to go anymore. It's like, I didn't get anything out of it. And I think what she talked about, the desensitizing and this human trafficking, some of the other issues that we face in our culture, how do we oppose that? How do we make it relevant so that we just don't get to the point where we see it all the time and it's normalized, and keep that fight for like, we got to do something about it. We can't make this normal. How do we get people out of that comfort zone?
Well, like Ish said, like it's very important I keep calling her Ish because that's my sis. But her name is pronounced Falilah. Say it with me now. Falilah. I got you.
I'm the worst person with names, so I'm just giving it out there now. I can't get nobody name right, so excuse me. No disrespect.
Look, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. So
I love you, Venus. Thank you.
It's good. I learned, look, I work with a lot of Black babies. Let's acknowledge it. You feel me? Our Black folks, we got names that's unique as everything in the world, okay? And sometimes it's like, okay, I don't want to butcher it, but I got to say it. You know what I'm saying? So I got you. I wanted to be accountable as a sister to my brother and hold space for you. You know what I'm saying? I got you. I am, because what? We are. All right. So, yeah, like she said, it's about having these conversations, right? Like brothers coming together and having conversations, and it not being just a barbershop conversation where it's being chopped up and women being chopped up, and it may be a couple brothers in there that want to interject because they have a different opinion against all of the men in there in the space, but because they don't want to be seen as weak or as simping or as whatever, right? They don't say nothing. It's time to speak up. You know what I mean? It's time to open your mouth and use your words. Your throat chakra is blocked, and I need you to work on that. Okay. And yeah, the trauma part, the hyphy kids got trauma part. Rico, I don't think you was in here when I was talking about that. The song that comes to mind for me is D-Lo. We don't give a no. Like, and look, that song, I don't remember what year it came out, but I was in high school. I graduated in 2009. So I know from 2006 to 2009, really 2005 to really 2000, I'm not going to keep going back, but 2006 to 2009 was like, for me personally, the pinnacle of hyphy, right? I give it 2005 because that's when What's My Favorite Word? Whoop! Came out, right? And Tell Me When to Go came out. You know what I mean? My Ghetto Report Card, like that time was electrifying. Okay, to be from the town and to be from the Bay in general, when it came to certain music, like, I mean, we can even go back to Mac Dre, like all of these artists and all of these folks are a part of our upbringing. They're a part of the Oakland culture, right? We're from Oakland and we got hyphy culture, but we also got Black Panther culture. My auntie Nancy was a part of the Black Panthers. And so I know that certain things I shouldn't listen to, right? But again, I was talking about that balance, right? How do we balance ourselves in our community, right? How do we not censor ourselves when it comes to the joy that we feel from certain songs, right? For a long time, so when I came into my higher enlightenment, right? When I'm like finding out about being Black and finding out about, you know, so at camp, Akili, Kasala was the director, the face of camp that year. And that was my first time going to camp. I was a camper and we were learning about the word bitch and nigga. And when it came to those words, anytime somebody said those words, 10 push-ups, boom, hit them, right? We learned, like, we was learning to purge. It was like, we go into that program to unlearn all of the things that we've learned and we've been conditioned to think and believe about ourselves. And I promise you, for a long time, for the first few years, when I would leave camp, I wasn't saying bitch, I wasn't saying nigga. I was like, really, you know what? No, I'm a queen, you're a king, blah, 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 brother, sister, woo, 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 right? And I felt so conflicted, you know what I'm saying, when it came to being a hyphy kid who got trauma, but who's also trying to elevate herself in healing, you know, and as a woman. And I came to this conclusion about 2-3 years ago that I am a multifaceted being and I don't have to be confined to a box, you know, just because when, you know, that bass line drop, doom, 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 clap, 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 and I feel it and I'm like, D-Lo, we about to go. Like, I don't have to feel bad about it. Right? I don't have to feel bad that I love this song. I don't have to feel bad that when I scream, what's my favorite word, bitch? That's not really my favorite word. It just feels good to say it in the moment. Like, I don't have to feel bad about that because ultimately it's about giving the history of these words, giving the history of this music, giving the history of the way that we have been objectified, sexualized, and oppressed as a people. It's about understanding that part and understanding why we take everything that we've been through and we flip it and we make it joy. We make it fun. We make it amazing, right? So I just wanted to uplift that because hyphy has so much negative energy attached to it because of sideshows, because of, you know, drugs, because of all of this stuff that Oakland is kind of known for, even though we were one of the most oppressed cities in, you feel me, the country they was throwing what, guns out, boxes of guns and boxes of drugs in West Oakland, just, you know. So when it comes to what word am I looking for, y'all? Because I'm getting excited. When it comes to the infiltration of the Black family and the Black community, we've just always managed to take it and flip it and make it better. Nah, we don't have no business eating chitlins, but guess what? This is the shit we got. And we're going to season it, we're going to make it good, and we're going to be able to nourish ourselves the way that we can while we have what we have, if y'all feel where I'm coming from.
Definitely. Go ahead, Ish, you have something to say, go ahead.
Absolutely, Venus, that the music, thank you, that the music and the culture is so much a part of it. And again, remembering and recalling and lifting up that we're Africans. Like, it's known that we move through music, right? We move through energy and vibration. So many people mimic us and they imitate us because they may not be, you know, genetically Black or African, but they connect to our vibration, our energy, right? And so I want to just speak up right now because there's some powerful energy in the world that's happening, and we're moving from one type of reality into another one. And it has to do with the fall of capitalism. And we talk about human trafficking, we have to talk about capitalism. We recognize as African people that we don't value objects just because they're objects, that we value spirit, that we value our hearts, right? That we value the way that we love. We value the earth, right? And so we value the mother as the original earth, right? Someone that's in tune with their spirituality, and if it's African spirituality, could never traffic a girl, right? Because they value their mom and they come out of a vagina, right? And so it's improbable for that to even be a concept. But so many of us are surviving under capitalism, which says I can sell anything. And if I bought this thing, how dare you tell me what I do with my car? If I want to bust my car up, I want to leave it on the street, I want to put a banana in it instead of gas, I want to paint it, I want to make it bump loud music, it's my car, I own it. And so we've been brainwashed to believe this thing, and me too. I'm not saying this is y'all, I'm saying us, we, right? We've been brainwashed to believe in capitalism as the way. So capitalism is also one of the systems that we have to deconstruct. And right now we see it failing. And I get happy when it happens. Like, I'm almost 50 years old and I'm getting juice when people are like, can we barter and exchange something other than money? I think it's funny when we say, like, we don't have resources. Yeah, we do. We have a ton of resources, but our greatest resource is the power within us. It's the power of you, right? And that you, that I, connects with the we. And this is why Rastas say I and I. It's me and you, right? This value of who you are and the light you bring. And so when we talk about human trafficking, we have to remember that so many of us have struggled under capitalism, that a lot of us are willing to sell our complete soul and everything about ourselves, including ourselves. And this is the side of the game that you don't really talk about when you talk about pimps. And some of the pimps that I've dated and I've been with, they've told me what got them out the game was, a person wanting to buy them. Let's just talk about it, okay? We don't talk about these things, but to what degree are they going to sell their souls as well for this thing of money? Like, and to what degree? Like, how much is enough money? Okay, when does it end? Right? You chasing this thing that our society tells us you can never have enough of. And so I just think that that's a relevant piece to talk about when we look at this issue. That capitalism is also driving it. And it's going to be hard for us because we are capitalists. We're born in this society, in this culture. And so this has been something we've relied on. And I know people that, like women, a dude will break their heart, lie to them, cheat on them, leave them. But if he owed him money, she like, and he owed me money. And it's like, he broke your heart and gave you an STD, right? And abandoned your kids, but you mad because he owe you $1,000. I've been guilty of that, y'all. Myself. And I have to really say, well, my heart being sad is way more important than this $1,000 that he owes me. But for some reason, I've been brainwashed to focus on that, right? And so that is the exchange, that is the currency. And, it's a privileged notion. I want to say that as someone that's never really, I've had my struggles, but I haven't ever been homeless, Venus. I haven't ever didn't know what I was going to eat, or have shoes on my feet. And so I'm privileged in that I can criticize capitalism as this thing that's bad because I've also had the privilege of having. And so I just wanted to bring that in there because I think that's important. And I think that when you start these conversations at barbershops, at your dinner tables with your friends and your families, that you can start talking about like, yo, how much money is enough? Like, that's a conversation I could have with someone I know who's a pimp or someone who's a buyer. Like, you're sad and you want to spend $250, right? But like, what's the other side of this? What else are you exchanging?
Right.
Wow, I think you hit on a good point. And that's what we created this virtual space for, both sides of the conversation, having this community healing forum, having a way to communicate, because we understand through communication, a healing process begins. And I think it starts with getting it off our chest. And that barbershop talk is kind of the talk here with a little bit more. And I think that's what we're doing as we engage in the people. And I think you hit on another thing that was very powerful. And I look at it from a different phase, but I think that is the two problems with America. Capitalism and classism is what's destroying us. And we definitely going in the right direction. But the way we get through it is we have to unify as a community and support each other and just keep moving and making these changes happen. So thank you for putting that out there. Aisha, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with what Ish was talking about, because on another side of it, as a mental health practitioner, there's the idea of capitalism, and there's also the idea of what's societally acceptable, right? So everybody is aspiring to be an author or an artist or a rapper or a person of means. And so we have this thing that we want to throw around, like we talk about Beyonce and Jay-Z, Puffy and all of them being a part of the Illuminati because they've made it and they're successful. But we also talk about how they've had these different experiences, these different closeted experiences as Black people, people on the down low, people who have made it up a certain echelon, right? And so there are also those levels to brainwashing where people can't be successful with having had fellatio or cunnilingus with a person in order to get up to a certain point, right? It's like, oh, well, she made it to be president. She must have bent over in the janitorial closet, right? As if we can't be intelligent enough to be successful without having done some heinous or grotesque act. I remember a couple of years ago, we were having the development, and Ish, you may recall this, where we were developing a new DSM-5. And so the DSM is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that doctors and people within medical industries and practices use to do certain diagnoses. Well, it became a time where we hadn't done a DSM for however long, and they were reestablishing what diagnoses were going to be included and updated and disregarded. So you may hear about depression, you may hear about schizophrenia, you may hear about, somebody being manic, but also things like, anxiety or even stuttering or just other things are in that statistical manual to help doctors determine what level of care you're going to get, what symptoms you have, what the outcome is, and whatnot. So I bring all of that to say is because the people and the powers that be, and Aisha talked about the hierarchical system, they wanted to include pedophilia into the DSM as a disorder. Now let's look at who writes these medical journals, who has control of the medical system, AKA Kaiser, AKA Summit, AKA the top 5 families of the US. White men, Trumps, Weinsteins. So if it's included in the DSM-5, then that means that it's a medical disorder. You can get taken off of work for that. You can receive benefits for that. Taxpayers have to pay for your therapy, for that. And this was something that they were saying should be included as a medical disability, right? All of this I say to point out to us that there's a level of which we are not participating in society that we need to be aware of, because at this level, when we're not aware and we're not discussing and we're not having and being a part of the conversations, decisions are being made to either criminalize us, put us in jail, or to further disenfranchise us, to have us be impacted by things that really don't pertain to us, right? And the only reason why it pertains to us is because it impacts us so negatively. So I wanted to pull that up to bring that into the part of the conversation, because it's often something that we overlook, right? We don't talk about the systemic trauma that we have and that we've inherited and that we continue to be disenfranchised by. And a lot of this doesn't belong to us. It's not native to us. It's not authentic to us. It's not who we are at the fiber and the core of our beings as African people. It's just not, right? So I just wanted to pull that up and bring that into the conversation, because along with being traumatized and impacted by it, there are some things that we really need to have genuine conversations around and about. So thank you for pulling that part of it up, Ish.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And we're going to hit some more about this mental health in a second. But Danielle, Jada, did you guys want to jump here? I know Jada always have a good question about this time, or a good understanding.
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump in. I want to thank everybody and just let you know I'm an educator myself, and I'm just getting all kind of schooling today. So thank you for everybody for speaking your experiences. I would like to know how you can recognize some of the signs of a victim of sex trafficking. How can we recognize it, and what are some of the things that we can do to blow the whistle, pay attention to it? Because I know, especially in our culture, a lot of times people see stuff going on, and out of fear and shame and all kind of reasons, we're scared to speak out. We see it, but we act like we don't see it. We don't want to get involved. What can we do to keep ourselves private in doing it? And again, what are some of the signs? What are some of the signs that we should be looking for a victim of sex trafficking?
Venus, you want to take that, or you want me?
I know you're about to sign off, so you can, and I beg you back on whatever you got to say.
So a few things for parents and family members to look for: random gifts, like presents and gifts that you didn't know your child was having. How'd you get those shoes? Where'd you get those phones, right? Like random gifts that seem a little excessive and come out of nowhere. There could also be a young person could have had an experience that but they're being groomed. It's really the grooming stage, and that's a stage. And I would offer, and Venus can share some of this information, that there's trainings that go more in depth with what are the signs. But when someone is being groomed to be trafficked, they're being basically romanticized. And it's generally an older person that's saying to them, you're pretty, you're sexy. Let me get you this skirt. Oh, try on this thing. Oh, you need a phone? No problem. Right. So noticing that they are coming up with things that you didn't purchase for them or you didn't give to them. You could also notice shifts in emotional state, which is hard when you talk about teenagers or young people and adults, because a lot of us, especially with Corona right now, are going through so many emotional ups and downs. This is a very kind of hard time. So you may see that. Another sign that someone is possibly being trafficked is there are lapse in time that's not accounted for. Right? So lapse in time, like 3 hours went by and your daughter's location was turned off and you didn't know why her location was turned off. When she came back, she said she was at the after school program, but you talked to the after school program director and she wasn't there. And so there's these lapse of times where there are periods that are unaccounted for. Some other signs could also be relationships with older adults who seem strange. And I say relationships with older adults that can also be within your family. This does not have to be a stranger. This issue is not a stranger. This is not the boogeyman largely coming out of the closet, like Rico indicated in his share. Like, it was his uncle. So it's people you know, right? It's generally, unfortunately, a lot of that is people we know. And then also, I would say with the work I do, because I don't work officially with an organization right now that's focused on this. I just have a group of young survivors that still call me and ask me for things that I'm noticing behaviors over time. My hand is going like this, like up and down. So behaviors over time, because some of these indications may seem just normal, but there's an up and down of human trafficking that you will see when you are with survivors over an extended period of time. I would also look for elements of abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and there's so many variety of ways of how that shows up. That is all that's coming to mind for me right now. And I know that Venus will offer some other expertise. And I apologize, y'all, in the effort of caring for myself, I have to jump off the call. But this has been a powerful conversation, and I appreciate being included in it. And I want to be a part of more.
Thank you. We definitely want you to come back.
I need to jump off.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, and we'll be reaching out to you for some further conversations.
I would love to.
Have fun in the snow.
Next time I come back, I'll be all fancy. I'll be like makeup and hair. I'll come back and show you the other side of me, both sides of me. God bless everybody. Thank you so much for lifting up this conversation.
I appreciate you, sis.
All right, well, we'll just continue to move. Venus, if you want to jump in there, and then I know Jada, she has something.
I mean, each touched on a lot of the things. The biggest thing that I know my mentor Sarai tells me is to let people know to get training, right? These trainings are really important. I could tell you what to look for, right? But in reality, you don't know what you're seeing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can be something as simple as, your cousin got a new boyfriend, right? And his energy is off, but he cool, right? But you just notice that she's just different. You know what I mean? She's changed around him. It's something that's just not right. She, like Aisha said, she went from, wearing, Adidas to wearing, she got a pair of Louis Vuittons. Where the hell you get those from? You ain't got no car. Like, there's just certain things that you gotta notice and pay attention to. Even like, we do hotel trainings for hotels across the Bay Area and stuff. Well, across America in general, but we train the people that are at the hotels to pay attention to signs that they might be like, okay, this girl doesn't look like she should be with this grown ass man. What's going on with this? Why are there so many people going in and out of this hotel room? You know, like there's levels to all of it, honestly. Because it even goes back to, you know, a child being abused, right? You don't really know when a child is being abused unless you're really paying attention to that baby. You know your kids, you know how they move, you know how they act. And if they start acting weird all of a sudden, it's on you to check in with them, right? A lot of parents go, you know, just a long time without checking in on their babies, and not necessarily saying it's negligence or anything. You know, parents be going through a lot, you know, trying to maintain business and all of that, especially with COVID right now, right? For me, I've noticed like the influx of women that have been on E1FO, it's been extreme. Like it's always been a lot of people out there. And I don't know if this is just something because I'm just starting to do this this type of outreach that I do, but like from 5th all the way to 38th, you know, I come in contact with almost 50 women. Like this is looking like the strip. Like it's so intense right now. It looks like something off of a movie. Honestly, it looks like something you would see, you know, like I've never seen it the way that I see it right now. And it's crazy because it's COVID and it's like, it's booming. You would think that it wouldn't be but at the same time, no, because it's a lot of money on the table. It's a lot of people who don't, you know, who aren't getting any money right now. So guess what? They're going to try to find a way to get money. There's just, you know, loneliness, you know what I'm saying? People are like, oh, well, I'm by myself. I'm lonely. I'm in the house all day. Well, let me go try to, you know, get a companion right quick. There's so many different scenarios and things that come to mind, but I say all that to say training is so important, y'all.
Absolutely.
You guys,
I think other indicators that folks need to look for too are like if you see young ladies or young men with random tattoos, right? I remember one summer when I was directing camp, and I had noticed all these young ladies with different tattoos. And so I gathered up all the girls and I was like, yeah, let's all, you know, how many people have tattoos? Let's show each other our tattoos and whatever. We had like 3 girls who had the same tattoo. And they kind of got an attitude about it, but didn't try and say anything. And so when I checked in with them, it was like they were in different areas. They were at different schools, but they was all being run by this same little tennis shoe pimp. And so we had to sit down and have a conversation about that. You know, and then also with young men, I think it's important. The conversation has been heavily weighted on, you know, the females and whatnot, but just be mindful of the young men. If they're starting to isolate a lot, you notice that they're not talking a lot, wearing headphones, you know, covering themselves up, dressing differently, check in. And this isn't a wait till you see something conversation. To my parents out there and to my aunties and caregivers and stuff out there, this isn't a wait till you see something happen conversation. We should be having these conversations with our children and with our youth on a regular basis. I know when I was doing forensic interviewing, a lot of the questions that we had to talk about were about the body parts. And I just want you to know out there, if you calling your cootie cat, if you calling it your TTs, if you calling it your PP, that if something happens to your child and they cannot describe or name their private parts by the appropriate name, there's no case. So if my son gets violated and he said, Uncle Tony sucked my pee-pee, well, who is Uncle Tony? If my child can't say that that is Tony Bean and he sucked my penis, then there is really no case. So we have to stop infantilizing our children. We have to teach them about their bodies. We have to teach them about appropriate touch. We have to teach them about how things work and how things don't work, who has access and who does not. I know that as a child, my mother didn't allow anybody to kiss us in our face. She was very in particular about what she made normal for us. So if you wanted to hold us, no. If you wanted to kiss us, no. You could kiss my hand, but I just wasn't being held by everybody. And I just wasn't running up to every uncle and sitting in his lap. I have great relationships with my uncle, but we don't just kiss each other in the mouth. That's not something that we do. And so I just say that to say that, like, train your children up in the manner in which you want them to grow. Make sure that they're knowledgeable about their own bodies. Make sure that you're checking in with them regularly so that it's a normalized conversation, so that they don't feel strange when you start saying, where'd you go? And okay, you spent the night at so-and-so's house. Who was there? Make sure that you're checking in with them and that you are making these conversations as normal as possible, so that it's not shocking and traumatic. Like, why you all on me? Why are you trying to be in my business? Because it is definitely a relational thing. If you can develop a relationship and a rapport with somebody and able to have an educated and an informed conversation, it just makes it easier for them to share and to disclose with you what their real and authentic experience has been.
Jada, you want to go ahead and jump in there, Jada?
Yeah, for sure. I will say, Casa, I had no idea that if a child is not able to name those specific areas, it's almost like cases thrown out. That's really crazy to know. And I will say, Venus, you actually touched upon my questions. It's almost like you knew that I was going to ask these questions. So the ones that I came up with was what organizations or institutions kind of like in your work do you tend to partner with to raise awareness around human trafficking? And then, of course, with the current circumstances of COVID, how has that impacted your efforts? And like any observations that you've seen with those affected by human trafficking?
Yes, thank you, Jada. There are multiple programs across the Bay Area that one could get in contact with to support, to be like a volunteer or to support and get resources with human trafficking. There's this organization called Love Never Fails. They are a place that they house women, right? So they're able to take in women who have been trafficked, who are ready to get out of that life and, turn over a new leaf, right? So they have that and they do trainings and all of that, right? So we have Love Never Fails. Binti Sarai. Well, not Sarai, but Sari. I always have a hard time. See, look, I have a hard time pronouncing names too. Binti Sari. It is kind of like it's like a Southeast Asian program, so to speak, because there's a lot of folks in our Asian community that are being trafficked, and people kind of like don't talk about it like that because it's there's a lot of labor trafficking happen and there's a lot of sexual trafficking happen. So it's like it's a fusion of both worlds, but because those aren't the people that are like on the street doing it, people don't necessarily talk about it. And that's a really good program. They educate young people. They give young people opportunities to work with them and be advocates. Again, we have Missy, motivating, inspiring, serving. Excuse me, it's a tongue twister. Motivating, inspiring. I'm tired, y'all. Can I just acknowledge that too? I had like 4 hours of sleep. Okay.
I did drop Missy in the chat, and so it is on there on the Facebook, and I also dropped in Nola Brantley's work as well as Shade. So all of those informations in those organizations, you can hit up the chat on the Facebook to find those links. Gotcha, Venus.
Because first of all, can we just acknowledge, let's give Kosler her flowers. Hello, here you go. Hold them, take them. Kosler is one of the most on point women that I've ever met in my whole life. Like, just to know that I'm like, in my head, I was like, okay, I need to get on Google right quick so I can drop some stuff in the chat. I don't have to, because Kosler is on it, okay? Anyways, get into it. So yeah, Missy, motivating, inspiring, serving sexually exploited youth. That is a program that was created and founded by 4 amazing women which experienced some exploitation in their lives, but they had seen that there's a lot of children that are being exploited right now, and there's nowhere for them to get help. Right, that's a big thing. Like, there's nowhere for these babies to get help and get services. So they created the organization, and the organization has blossomed and is doing numbers when it comes to being able to support young women and young people who identify as who are female identified um, to be supported. Uh, then we have Shade. So Shade is survivors healing, advising, and dedicated to empowerment. And that is a organization that Sarai, one of the founders, put together for people who are advocates, and then people who are survivors who are in the movement that want to be able to support across the board, right? It's not just like a singular thing. There's case management services, there's outreach services, there's opportunities for us to be able to, you know, give vouchers for housing and everything. That's something that I've been doing for like about the last month. I've been getting people hotel rooms and just food gift cards and all of that, to be able to just kind of survive for the moment. It's not a lot because, again, funding right now is so bad. It's so hard to get grants, to get money, to be able to support these specific efforts because it's spread all over the place. And for the longest time, human trafficking was something that people didn't talk about, and it wasn't at the forefront. There were people who were doing the groundwork, but it wasn't like within this last 5 years as big as it's been, especially like within this last 2 years, with, the things happening to the young ladies in DC, to the things happening to the babies in Atlanta, how it started, expanding, and people start having the conversation about, okay, how do we protect our girls and how can we be accountable, right? Because how do we have 50 girls missing and ain't nobody talking about it? Right? How do we have all of these babies that are just coming up missing, and they're missing for days, months, years, and never found, and nobody is talking about these things. So for me, I'm really grateful that these conversations are happening so much more now, because I remember my first time I did a march. We did this march. It was called For a Lost Child. For a Lost Child. And we marched down E1 from 24th to San Antonio Park on 17th and Foothill. And that was one of my biggest moments that let me know, like, okay, I have to stay in this fight, and I have to be the voice of the voiceless. I have to continue to push this agenda of love, this agenda of worth and understanding you're worthy. Like, when I'm out there, I do outreach. So I pass out condoms, PPE stuff. So I have these little cute bags that I give out, and it's like condoms, lube, hand sanitizer, masks, and it's a very small bag, right? Because they can't really talk to me. Let's be clear, right? I'm out there at night. Like, I want to like preference what I'm doing. So I'm out there and I'm walking, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? You need hand sanitizer, condoms? And sometimes they're like, yes, I'll take it. Sometimes they're like, no. Sometimes they don't speak, right? Because they don't want to get in trouble for speaking to some random woman walking down the street because they don't know if they pimp is watching, right? So just having this enlightenment and having this humbleness, this humbling experience of being able to connect with these women and give them light, right? Because a lot of the times, at the end of the day, these are my sisters, okay? So when I'm walking and then I'm like, hey, you guys need condoms, hand sanitizer? Well, they're like, girl, yes, what? I needed that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. God bless you. They, they give love, right? And I just be like, thank you, queen. I want you to know I love y'all so much. Y'all take care. And I always have little information cards, of course, in the bag, right? So, hey, I know y'all not going to keep them, but take a picture of the card. Let me know if y'all need anything. I'm always around, right? And I've been doing it for about 6 months now, pretty consistently, to the point where it's like some days when I'm not out there and then I come back, they be like, I was wondering where you were. How have you been? You know what I'm saying? And I'm like building rapport with these women, to the point where we've gotten some referrals, you know what I mean? Some women have actually called and they're actually reaching out. So it's about seeing them. People don't see them. People ignore them. People ride by them, or they might look a little bit and be like, ooh, and then keep it going, right? But these are humans. They are divine spirits having, you know, a rough ass human experience. And I think that when we learn how to humanize them as people, right, and see them as spirits, see them as divine lights that may just be in a real bad way right now, holding space for that and not judging them. I have a podcast and I never really talk about it, but I've been learning how to incorporate it into the work that I do. It's called The Sexy Side of Size. It's about sexual liberation. And I've been doing it for 3 years. We got 60 episodes, right? And we've had a lot of different people on my show. And at first I felt a way about doing it and having this podcast because we're talking about sexual liberation, right? So there's a difference between sexual liberation and sexualization. Somebody help! Sexualization. I said it. There's a difference, you know, and when it comes to being people who are sexual people, we are sexual people, right? Not downplaying the lives that people decide to live and the lives that people choose to live, because I also know that, you know, there's sex work and there's exploitation. You know, there's some people that made a decision to do this work and they're like, no, this is a life that I choose to live. There's, you know, mental health and there's trauma, you know, that goes along with certain things. But just to distinguish certain things, because there's a large conversation happening around, you know, making sex work legal, you know, and then, you know, the things that we've fought for so many years when it comes to, you know, passing policies and everything around human trafficking. And in order to differentiate those things, it needs to be clear on what human trafficking is and what exploitation is, right? Because there's nothing wrong with sexual liberation, right? There's nothing wrong with somebody doing what they do. Like with my show, I've been learning a lot about the BDSM community, right? Which is a very much so real community. And it's like it's a community that people, like, especially for Black people, it hasn't been something that we're a part of, right? Because, you know, it's bondage, it's ropes, it's chains and stuff. And, you know, we got trauma, right? With bondage, ropes, and chains. And so in us having that type of trauma, it's like BDSM has always been a white thing, right? It's like, that's what white people do. That's a white thing. And what I've been learning and having all of these amazing guests on my show is that that's a lifestyle that people choose to live that is so liberating for them, right? Because to be in that lifestyle, you have to have full confidence in yourself. You have to have a safe partner. It's like, it's about safety. It's about security. It's about all of these different things that one could say is like, you know, for instance, a dominant person and a submissive person, right? Now, that relationship for a lot of people could represent and seem a lot like a pimp, you know, and somebody being exploited, right? Because of the dynamic. But in that world, it's a different thing. It's not like that at all. Versus the exploitation, and I'm putting this woman out here and I'm selling her body and I don't care about her. All she is a form of profit to me. So I just wanted to raise that up. I don't know why my spirit wanted to raise that up, but
I think, V, because it talks to the level of consent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it around consent, safety, trust, security, self-confidence, but it really speaks to the level in which I think also you become of age to consent, to be able to participate in a certain lifestyle. That's an elective choice. Yeah. Versus this whole opposite underlined shade tree element that we've been talking about, as far as sexploitation, right? And so even I think at that, like you said, BDSM refers to like this level of bondage. We didn't even get to touch on the pornography industry, right? Which has its own level of marketing and different things like that. If you look up something else is, you know, the black bee and whatever, or the filthy slut. But when you look it up underneath white folks, it's like, oh, you know, the beauty in the Nile and whatever. We ain't got enough time to go into that. We'll definitely invite you back. I definitely want to invite you to do your own series on our platform. Thursdays, we have an educational series. And so I'm definitely going to make sure and hold you accountable to doing an educational series so that you can really provide people with the language, with the tools, with the resources that we need so that we can show up in community and know what we're looking for. Because like you said, it's about training. And a lot of this, I realize we've had, I ain't gonna say how long we've had to learn and unlearn certain things. However, it's really important for people to know what these indicators are, the different languages, the different layers, and where these resources are. Because a lot of times it may not be you who can reach out to a person, but if you can give them the resource and allow them the time to do those things in their own time, then eventually it will happen. And so thank you, sis, for joining us. I know that we have a little bit more time, but I want to know if anybody else had any other questions, or Danielle, were there any questions in the Facebook?
Yes. Yes, I had some more questions, and thank you again for sharing Kasla and Venus, and letting us know the difference between, or how we should look at it. Like you said, sexualization versus a sexual person. One of the questions, though, I had to ask, and I know a lot of people have asked this question, is how is it that the police officers and the cops can pass by these streets in Oakland and any other Black communities where they see exploited victims of trafficking and just act like it doesn't happen? What is going on? What happens usually when someone calls the police and says so such and such is going on? How is it that are these what's going on with that, and how is it that it's just continuing before our eyes and nothing's being done?
So for the longest time, women were being arrested, right? So they were being criminalized for being victims. And so like so many people were just going to jail. And so we ended up having to fight to, and because I am kind of sleepy, y'all, I'm not gonna quote the SB policy that we got, right? But we had to fight for them to not be criminalized, right? For the police not to pick them up because they see them out there. You don't know what she got going on and why she's out there, right? You can't turn a victim into a criminal. Why? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense, you know? So, you know, in this, like, you guys are picking up these women, but where are the men at? You're not, it's like, you seen that dude sitting over there in that car watching this whole time. Why you ain't pull up on him? Why didn't you go say nothing to him, but you got her in the backseat, right? So for the longest, like, we had to fight for that. So then the policy was passed so we would be able, so that wouldn't happen anymore. There was another policy passed. So Johns would be, you know, would get would be penalized, right, for, you know, purchasing somebody, right? And even the pimps, there's been like, it's been so many different things, right? But there's a lot of dudes like that I know that have been, you know, convicted of life, convicted, you know, so there's things happening, right, on the back end. We just don't hear about it, you know what I mean? But when it comes to the police not doing anything, we was talking about capitalism earlier, you know? Like, I don't know if you guys remember that one story of the young lady who, you know, the police officer in Oakland was like, you know, one of her buyers, right? And then tried to make it seem like she wasn't, you know, like he was arrested. It was just like, it was a lot, right? And that was a really big case. and like she sued the city of Oakland, you know, she got like, you know, millions of dollars, and well, not even millions of dollars. She got like $900,000 because they didn't want to give her $1 million, right? But like there was a lot that happened with that case that opened up some stuff within OPD that, you know, things had to start shifting. So now when you do ride down E1, you do see the police out there, but no, they're not doing anything. They are just riding back and forth. The biggest thing at this point that they've been doing are like big busts, right? Like prostitution rings and stuff like that, you know, when they get those type of tips. But they can't do anything unless they see something, right? Unless they see some type of, you know, like unless they see her being handed off to somebody to be bought. Like it's so many different politics that goes into it. But yeah, I don't know if that helps. They don't help. The police don't help, girl. You know, look.
No, thank you, thank you. And I do want to clarify, I don't believe in that we should be arresting the victims or anything like that. But like you said, the pimp is right there. They're right around the corner. So if they want to really catch people and bust them down, they can.
Mhm.
Just really quick, I had a second part to it too. As an educator myself too, like I said before, this is not even talked about in schools. There are not even workshops about this. You hear about people to come speak to the kids about suicide or, you know, LGBT help and things like that, but not this specific. Why aren't there more people going to schools? Why aren't there more people even speaking up about this? What's up with our culture and just keeping this hush? Is this something bigger than we know?
Well, you know, this is like a taboo conversation. Like number one, you know, like don't talk about their business. That's what they do. You know, Keisha over there that be doing what she be doing with Lamont. Yeah, they do what they do, but that's their business. I'ma just continue to babysit their babies at night when you know what I mean? Like because it's a cultural thing. Like we don't talk about just like how therapy is taboo in the Black community. We ain't talking to people about our business. They don't need to know about what I got going on. What is the common phrase? What happens in this house stays in this house. Right. So when it comes to those things, like Black folks, we just don't talk about it. Like we have certain communities that are having real rich conversations. But to go back to what Ish said earlier, is it's a generational thing, right? This is modern day slavery. This is, you know, a form of revenue that people will kill you over, right? You know, people kill you over money, right? But when it comes to this particular thing, like people will go to war over it, you know? And I feel like as a Black woman, it's really frustrating and it's really hard to hold space in it and not be of it, right? Being from Oakland, being from here, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the rigmarole. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, I don't know about y'all, but I didn't talk to a pimp before. Didn't know I was talking to a pimp, and then I was like, this nigga pimping. You know, like I was like, oh, I can't, what am I supposed to do with this? Because I was liking him and I was attracted to him. And, you know, he had all of this great energy about him and it was amazing. But then I found out what he was doing, right? And then again, mind you, I'm an adult, so I've been doing this work for over 10 years. So this happened while I'm doing this work. You know, like you come across these people all the time and it's like, well, what do I do? Well, do I try to like record him while he talking and like get him caught up and implicated and then get myself caught up and implicated? Like there's so many different, you know, so it goes back into, you know, Black people not talking about it. And when it comes to the slavery part, like the Black man and the Black woman have been like divided pretty much since then when it comes to, you know, the Black woman seeing the Black man, you know, being annihilated, you know, being castrated and be beaten and not fighting back, right? Not saying that all of them didn't do that because I'm very sure all of my ancestors was fighting, but for the ones that weren't, right? For the ones that were still here that did keep the lineage going, you know, and then you got the Black man that's watching the Black woman speaking, you know, like going in the house, you know, and, you know, being raped by massa, having a baby by massa, and then all of these different things that happen. And then you got the Black family being ripped apart altogether. Somebody wanted to say something. I'm talking a lot.
I just wanted to respond to Danielle's question about why we aren't talking about this in our educational system. Well, a couple of factors that contribute to that is that while sexploitation is definitely a taboo topic, and you raise the argument about should we be able to talk about sex in schools? Well, at the age of 12 and a half, legally, your kids have the authority decided by the state of California to make decisions about themselves without parents' knowledge or consent. I mean, at the age of 14 and a half, they don't even need you to go to the doctor with them. And the doctors in the schools do not need to inform you about what your child is doing. However, if your kid is caught truant or robbing a store or shoplifting or any of those other things, then you are liable as a parent or as a caregiver. And that applies to birth parents, foster parents, guardians, anybody in custody of a child. So this again is why I want parents to know what your rights are, what the laws are as it pertains to you being a parent or a caregiver of a child. They will talk to your kid, however, in school about quote unquote sex education. However, this is not one of the workshops. Why? Well, if we talk to you about your sexual reproductive system as a young lady, and we tell you that you have property and ownership of your body, and we can give you birth control, and you can control how many abortions you have and not have via Planned Parenthood, also tied to the 5 families of the United States of America, Planned Parenthood gets paid. There's no payment in relieving you from the system of oppression of sexual exploitation. So again, it goes back to the level of capitalism that we have embedded in our systems and how we educate our children and what we allow other people to educate in the seeds that are planted in our kids. So I just want to kind of bring that full circle as to why the school districts elect to have certain conversations and not, because it definitely relates to other institutions outside of us that we continue to perpetuate, not even knowingly. And I think Jada had something that she wanted to contribute as well.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and it was around the I kind of forgot, let me think. What are the kind of recruitment methods used by human traffickers?
Well, there's gift giving, extreme pressing. I don't know. Well, pressing, we from the town, we from the Bay, we know what pressing means. But for the people that are listening, pressing is to be very consistent and persistent in a pursuit of an individual. Mind games, manipulation is a very big thing. Like, you have to be able to suck somebody's mind and take it, hold it, and mold it and hold it in your hand. Right. So that's really because that's how a lot of the folks that are being exploited are able to continue to be exploited, because they're exploited has such a tight wrap on their mind. It's a mental thing. Most of the time it's mentally, but there is a big percentage that is physical, right? There are people that are kidnapped. Guerrilla pimping is very much so real. There's people who ride around in vans and cars and just snatch women up off the street. They take them to hotel rooms and they have them get ran through until ain't no more people to come and buy them, right? And they'll leave them either at the hotel or on the street somewhere, or they'll keep them, right? There are so many different, there's boyfriend pimping. Boyfriend pimping is another very common thing where there is, a dude who pursues a woman, and then, he gets her, right? He finds out, her weaknesses and all of the things that make her hurt, all of her vulnerability spots and all of that stuff. And he plays on into them. And he's able to, not even just him, because traffickers are women and men, and non-gender conforming, whatever you want to identify as, right? But the exploiter will, take that person's mind and make them feel like, I got you, You know what I'm saying? Like, it's us. It's been us. It's me and you. I love everything about you. You are my everything. I would never trade anything for you. Blah, da, 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 da. You are a guy. You are a queen. You are, you know, he talks all of this stuff, right? Just to get into her brain, you know, especially if she doesn't have a daddy, if she doesn't have family, if she doesn't, you know, if she has low self-esteem. There's a lot of ways that he'll get into her brain, or they will get into the individual's brain. Um, until the point where maybe a month goes by or 2 months goes by, or sometimes they're really crafty and they'll, you know, give it a nice amount, a nice period, you know, of time. So then when they know that they've primed the rib, you feel me, it's gonna fall off. You know what I'm saying? So once he's able to be like, damn, I got so much going on right now. Babe, what's going on? What? I'm just hella stressed out, babe. I just can't deal with this shit right now. Well, babe, what's going on? You know, like, man, I need some money right now, man. I really need some money. Well, what you need, babe? I got a couple dollars in my bank account. Nah, babe, I need more than that. That's not gonna be enough. Like, I don't know what we gonna do. Then it turns into a we, right? I don't know how we gonna make it. I don't know how we gonna da 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 da. I gotta pay for this. I gotta do this. I gotta woo woo woo. Well, babe, what do you need me to do? Like, I mean, you know, I don't know. Like, I don't want to put you in no position to be uncomfortable. I don't, you know, like, I love you so much. Woo, woo, I love you too. Like, that's all it takes, you know? And those ones are like, all of it is horrible across the board, but those specific ones are the ones that is real hard to get them out of the life, right? Because I love him. You know, he loves me. You know, those are the ones that, like, that's the, you know, like, the term in the hood is bottom bitch. You feel me? She's the one that's like, she gonna take the charge. She's gonna recruit other women. She's gonna, you know, like, there's so many different.
Having children.
Oh, girl, having the baby. You know what I mean? Like, having multiple babies by him, but still being there, still, you know, have name across everything. His name ain't on nothing, but her name is ran through the gutter, ran through the mud, right? So it's like, those ones are so bad because um the mental break that can happen from that situation can be so severe. uh if that helps, if I've given.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I'm glad you cleared that up, because the work I've done in San Francisco Juvenile Hall, a lot of the young ladies is recruitment. You know, a lot of it is men, but there's a lot of situations where young ladies use their friends and they sell them this ideal that my life is so great. I have a purse. He buys me this, and and that's why we teach our parents. Really have to be careful who our kids is associated with, their lifestyles, because a lot of times those young ladies sometimes will lure their friends into that lifestyle. And I think that was great that you brought that up, because I see that a lot. It starts off as fun, like, oh yeah, we going here. I mean, especially with this social media world we see with everybody, it's enticing. It's this instant gratification that these young women want. Oh, like, she got red bottoms, and she's flying here, she's in Dubai, but they don't understand that's part of some of the trafficking that happens. And I know a lot of times people don't see it that way. And I ask young women, and even sometimes my own daughter, just talking to her about stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I want to do this because they get money. I want to make all this money to do this," but they're not thinking like, this is just social media. And sometimes they use social media to lure people in, and it's like, you can't get caught up on the materialized things. And a lot of our young people, because we come from these communities where we financially struggling, and that plays a big part of it. And when you don't have the things that we think that we need, and you see your friends or you see these people doing all this stuff, and it's like, it's that intrigue to like, I want to be like that, right? So I think that was very powerful that you said that. Rico.
You're on mute, John. But I did also just want to say, like, we've talked a lot about the lure of the financial system. Also be aware of the lure of the emotional system. And so that's why I want, because like Venus said, once they get in that entrapment of being psychologically, being intimately, being emotionally codependent with somebody, that's the hardest thing to break. It's the easiest thing to intervene on when they see somebody who's emotionally deprived, emotionally thirsty. So that's why I keep saying, especially for parents and caregivers,
make sure that you create a relationship with your children, that you have an open dialogue. If it's your cousin, if it's your sister or whatever, you're definitely going to be able to reach an individual if you have an existing good rapport, great relationship with them. Don't leave your kids or that person, an individual, so destitute that they have to rely on somebody external, because the wolf in sheep's clothing can smell them out. They can sense them out. And so you really want to be able to make sure that your community is grounded emotionally as well as financially. Rico?
No, I just wanted to say thank you again, Venus, for coming on. Very informative and some amazing information that we can teach our youth and teach the young people that John and I are working with, especially our young men, to empower them to be strong and of worthy courage as it relates to them. Uh, Kasha, thank you for bringing up the emotional part. I think that a lot of times that part is always kind of ignored. And I think that, as a man, me personally, growing up in the community, it has always been pushed to psychologically and emotionally abuse women. But it's more like subliminal. It's never like said in the way that I'm saying it now, but it's more like we're taught to target a certain type of woman. And that's one that's low self-esteem, the one that's kind of that you believe that you can get whatever you want, but it's based on an emotional relationship and you in control of all the emotion and um, the mindset, and you can get everything. Like I don't know what Venus, the way she explained it was really really good. Like taking a whole mind and grabbing it in your hand, and it's not funny, but the way you explained it was definitely amazing. And I've seen it over and over and over and over and over. Like I've had family members in relationships that was just so toxic, and it's like, how are you sticking with this person? I mean, men and women, like, and it's like, it's like, how are you sticking? I didn't get it, and I'm like, but now the more and more you guys are explaining, I see it. It's like, okay, yeah, like folks are really engaged in like a relationship that's controlled by emotion, and this person have an emotional whip to you, or I don't even stronghold, and they're playing on your emotions and they playing on your mindset. So thank you for informing us on this, because I definitely have a daughter, and um I need all the tools I need to empower her and make sure that she know you a queen. Please don't settle for less, you know, and making sure that we had that line of communication, because I would hate for her to be me not us not be able to have a conversation around anything, like, you know what I mean. So just listening to this, that's what going through my head is my daughter, and just making sure, like, dang, and my boys, like, of course my boys too, but for me, my daughter, like, I just gotta. Well, luckily I got Kasha and and some good women next to me that that can help support me and the wifey and making sure that you know our children are safe and that they can get all the tools that they need to fight the wiles of the devil. So
I just want to acknowledge you right quick, Rico. You've been very vulnerable and open, like during this conversation. And I just really appreciate that. And you just being a Black man and being like, spirited and open, but also being, clear on who you are, right? Like it's all good. Everything is like across the board, a learning experience. We're all growing and we're all transforming every day. Every day is a different transformation. So it's not about, you know, trying to do one thing or do so many things at once because you feel like I gotta make sure this, and this. Nah, like at the end of the day, like for the children that you have that you've brought into the world, your seeds, it's about you teaching them the right legacy to lead, right? Teaching them, like you said, teaching her to be a queen, that she's a goddess, that she's worthy of everything that's glitter and gold and whatever her favorite color is, right? And for your sons, that they're kings, right? Respect women, understand that at the end of the day, these women that you decide to deal with, they are your mother, they are your sister. So don't treat them with any less respect, right? So I acknowledge you, I see you, and I hear you, brother.
Deep, powerful stuff. I mean, this is the dialogue. And when you talked about taboo, that's what we're trying to do here at both sides of the conversation, right? We have to break this ideal that Black folks, we can't talk. And this is what we came up with, this concept to talk about the difficult conversation in our community that we don't typically have, to bring away some kind of healing and understanding to help educate and equip our community with these topics and these things. And sometimes these topics are going to be difficult. They're going to be tough, but we always going to keep it real on both sides of the conversation. We'll keep it authentic, and we're going to talk at a level that we understand, and we try to get the best people that we can to help support these conversations. So I think that was very important, and I appreciate Venus in saying amazing. Amazing is one of the words we use around here at both sides of the conversation. And it was just nice to hear you say amazing, because we get knocked around for saying amazing around here. We say amazing too much, but it is truly amazing. It's very appreciated, to have you guys come on and talk about these type of topics. And we're going to continue these conversations. This is not a one-hitter quitter. Even though this was the week for this, we're going to continue these conversations and figure out how do we collaborate and work with the community and use this media platform to get this message out to our community, because we don't have to wait for a school district to tell us to have these conversations. As community, we need to step up and have these conversations. And I'm hoping through our mentoring program, we have some women that's going to come on and help mentor these young girls, that these conversations, with the support of their parents, we have them, and we continue to do it. Because again, in our community, a lot of times we wait for the system to tell us when it's time to educate and promote. And we have to take the lead and take the torch, and we have to do it ourselves. So that's what we promoting in 2021. We're not waiting for our elected officials. We're not waiting for these policies to come in place. We're going to step up, and we're going to do what we have to do as community moms, dads, cousins, and uncles and brothers, and deal with these issues. So with that being said, we are getting close to closing out. I want to give everybody on this panel an opportunity to close out with some words. We could start with Jada. Just, close out with something that you think people need to hear, or what you got out of it. I think it's important that we close out and give everybody opportunity to close out.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Venus, and I'm so glad that you and Aisha were able to join. You both really framed this conversation to be really necessary and great. That's like all I'm seeing in the chat is just like, this is so necessary. And just really the energy that you guys brought to the platform today, I've loved it. This was definitely a great platform, and I think very informative, like so many resources in the chat. So yeah, thank you so much.
Kashala.
I love you, V. And I'm gonna continue to love on you and support you. I really appreciate you and Aisha giving up your Sunday and some time in your Sunday to address it. I know that this is a life and a mission, a goal for us to eradicate some of these things that are in our community. Like I said when we started, glad to have warrior women with you, with me along for this journey. Both sides of the conversation is definitely just a part of that puzzle. Know that you have a home here with us. So anytime you want to grace this platform, you got it. Like I said, I definitely look forward to your educational Thursday, and we'll make sure that you get on calendar so that you can really take advantage of that and invite other people along, because that's what this is about. And so to everybody that is out there that is watching, that will see this, just know that there is community. And I know that one thing that they want to do is continue to be divisive and to have us think that we don't have community. Like Venus said, I've known her since she was a youngin', and it's family, you know what I mean? And I think that that's one thing that we're trying to promote and position here, is the element that we are community on both sides. And I really appreciate you bringing that, you and Aisha bringing that, like Jada said, and bringing that energy and bringing that feel. And so, I know we have a lot more to talk about and a lot more to address, but I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, Danielle, you want to go ahead and give us some last words?
Yeah, sure. My closing words are first, thank you again, Venus and Falilah in her absence. I hope I said it right. I like what you said, John, about not waiting for our educational system to bring these topics up. We as a community can start this discussion once again, and we can bring it. And let me know, Venus. I'd love to work with you and bring this topic to children in the community. I'm also affiliated with some educational organizations in the community, and we can definitely start the discussions there. I would like to just let the parents know that the conversation starts early with instilling self-esteem, self-awareness, self-love. I know my mother talked to me at an early age about what to accept as far as treatment and healthy relationships, really early drilled in my head, and then it was reinforced, and it really helped me. I mean, I was stopped by approached by pimps when I was a teenager a couple times, and I thank God was able to walk away with my life, and it didn't get crazy, but it was very blatant. But I had already been kind of peeping out. I was watching all kind of shows on pimps to try to look myself, because I've always been an inquisitive person on what the life is like, what the language is like, what are they saying, how do they get, but we need to start having it early with our kids. I know parents want to wait and talk, no, elementary school, and it just instilling in that, because we don't need to be expecting affirmation from the outside world and acceptance there. It needs to start here. So that's just what I want to say to our parents about that. And thanks once again. That's it for me.
All right, powerful words. Venus, go ahead.
Well, I just want to, number one, thank y'all for having me on here. I'm really grateful to just be in community with y'all and have this conversation as Black people. It's important. Like, it's a very important conversation to have. And I like y'all energy, y'all good vibes. You guys are amazing. I love saying the word amazing, but me and my mama, we say that word all the time. So whoever got a problem with the word amazing,
Fantastic, terrific, great, all day long.
Thank you again, Venus. Rico, you wanna leave us with some last words, Rico?
Yep, I just want to say thank you once again to you, Venus, to everybody out there that supports both sides of the conversation, to the both sides of the conversation family, Jada, Danielle, Kashla, Aisha, who's always in the background running crazy to make stuff happen.
Shout out to her for getting me on here.
Right. And definitely my guy John.
Shout out to her.
And definitely my guy John Henry. Thank everyone, for this platform and what we got going on. I think that like we always say, it takes conversation to create communication, to start the actual healing process. And we got to have those tough conversations, like John always say. The tough conversations is the taboos that we say is culturally and we systemically never want to talk about it, and that will keep us on our own personal oppressions. So us as a community, we got to bring experts on like Venus to talk about this type of stuff, to give the community the awareness, to open up eyes, to enlighten individuals with the type of knowledge that we need to know, so that we can start making the transformation not only in ourselves but also with the people that we're connected to. So I just want to thank everybody. I'm like got goosebumps over here. I'm feeling like super good off this conversation. And every conversation I always say at the end, it's a good conversation, John. And it do be, because the community is being awakened, and we in that space now. So I think that no matter what we do, we just continue to put in the work. And thank you, Sister Venus, for putting in the work and uplifting your community, and today uplifting our family on both sides of the conversation. And we know a lot of people going to be trying to reach out to you. So I know Kasha, she already probably put your information in the chat or something or whatever, but we definitely want to send our sisters your way, or whatever we can do to do something. We need to do something. I don't know what it is yet, but we got all amazing minds on here, and we definitely come up with something. You have an amazing weekend.
Man, thank you. Powerful words. I just want to say thank you all as well. And for our sister in here, just wish her the well. It's very important to continue to have these conversations. What Rico and the team here at both sides of the conversation has really created is really impacting community. For people out there that don't know, we are getting so many emails and messages about the conversation on the show and how it's helping people evolve and get through their days and get through their weekends and deal with some of the things that they don't want to think or deal with. And I think it's important that we understand that this communication is working, and we're impacting. So thank the whole Both Sides of Conversation team for all the work and dedication that they do to make this happen behind the scenes and here on the live webinar and also in our groups. You know, a lot of you that's in our Facebook group have to understand we are trying to get these conversations to continue to happen and get everyone engaged, because part of it is unity. We have to unify as a community to continue to have these conversations. That's what we gonna continue to do. So as we close this out, we want to let everybody know that's watching this Friday, we're going to have a launch of our website. We're going to have a launch party this Friday evening. We're going to do a live webinar, and we're going to show you guys step by step how to navigate our website, how to book people for shows, how to become a panelist, how to nominate hidden gems, how to nominate a business, get a business promotion out there, and how do you participate to do our educational Thursdays, what it looks like. It should be a fun time. Hope you guys could join us this Friday. We'll be putting information out later this week. Jaden will be putting some flyers out and some information, and I think this is going to be cool. We try to make it very, very, very human interactive, ABC-ish, real simple, so that people can navigate our site. So look forward for that. This Friday, we'll all be here, the Both Sides of Conversation team. A lot of people want to know who are the people on the backside. You could go on the website. We have all our pictures up of our team, our board, and then you'll get to see everybody this Friday, and they can introduce you, and you guys can see them out there. So I'm looking forward to that. And then this Tuesday, we'll have another hidden gem segment where our hidden gems will be highlighted from the community and our businesses. That's what the Tuesday Hidden Gem Show is about. So we'll be having another one this Tuesday at 7 p.m. So please join us. And again, for you guys that had trouble with the Zoom link, or always, you can go to the Both Sides of Conversation website. You'll be able to click there, watch live when we're live. There's a timer that counts down and lets you know when the show is about to go live, and you can access the platform right through that timer at the website. So keep the website in mind, bothsidesofconversation.org. That's where you're going to get a lot of our information. And then this Sunday, we're going to, this Thursday coming up, we'll have another educational presentation. And it should be another informative conversation that we're having to educate and equip our people in the community with information. So we're just going to keep this process going. We're going to continue to convene. Again, we want to give shouts out, thanks to our brother Shaman Walton, as he is the new board president of San Francisco Supervisor. And we want everybody to know we got to get behind our people. We got to support them. We got some leaders in office in San Francisco that's making change. We got some leaders across this nation that's making change. Let's get behind them and support them. I seen.
Did you say Shaman?
Shaman
Walton.
Walton. Shaman Walton.
Shaman.
Shaman Walton. I'll get you the information in the chat.
Okay, I was like, because I wasn't sure if you said that. I wasn't sure, because I was like, I got a Shaman Walters, who's my uncle, but I wasn't sure if y'all was saying the right person. So it's okay. It's got.
We'll get you the information in the chat. And I know we see Maurice Rivers in there. And one thing that I want to do, definitely community, collaborate with him. I know Shaman is pushing this cleanup D10, cleanup around the city. And I know Maurice is involved with that. And I definitely want everybody we got to start working together. Part of cleaning up who we are, our cultures, is to start by cleaning up our community neighborhood. There's a lot of dumping. There's a lot of issues going on in our community where people is dumping. We're reaching out to some of the dump sites in San Francisco Ecology, trying to get them on to educate people how to get stuff out of your homes and to their sites safely. And we got to talk about some of these issues in our community with cleaning and people coming into our communities and dumping and leaving. You know, we got to really stand up and stop these people from illegal dumping. But also we have to find a way, how do we support people who are financially strapped that get a new refrigerator or a stove to help them get this stuff properly recycled and put away so it's not on our streets, impacting the image of our community. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end and just say, man, this was a powerful conversation. You sisters are amazing. Anything we could do here at Both Sides of Conversation to support you guys on your journey, we're here. If there's any digital flyers or any promotional stuff or event that you guys are doing, please reach out to us. We'll get it out to the community. We want to continue to support you in any way we can, because this is real and this is impacting our young ladies and our community. And we have to do something about it. We have to stop talking and be active and proactive with it. So just appreciate you for coming on today. And I'm going to go ahead and just end with that and just tell everybody we love y'all. We see y'all on Tuesday for our Hidden Gem Show.